Imagine this: a black woman, confident, accomplished, and holding the powerful position of a judge, is pulled over by a cop with something darker than justice on his mind. The encounter starts off routine, but quickly spirals as the officer's true intentions begin to show. The tension grows as he hurls accusations, his tone dripping with disrespect, clearly underestimating who he's dealing with. She remains calm, her silence like a storm waiting to break, while the officer's arrogance blinds him to the weight of his actions. Little does he know, the next 4 minutes will change everything. In a moment of poetic justice, Karma delivers a lesson this cop will never forget. This is a story of courage, resilience, and the unexpected power of truth, one that will leave you speechless. Stay tuned, because what happens next will restore your faith in accountability. The officer's condescending tone grew sharper as he demanded her license and registration, his body language radiating arrogance. The woman, calm yet firm, handed over her documents without a word. She knew the routine all too well. But this was no ordinary traffic stop, and she could sense it. His questions became invasive, his voice laced with an unwarranted authority that seemed to challenge her very existence. What the officer didn't realize was that this wasn't just another driver he had stopped. She was a judge, a figure who had dedicated her life to upholding justice for everyone, no matter their background. As he continued his tirade, a few cars slowed down to observe what was unfolding, their passengers looking on with curiosity and concern. The woman's silence was powerful, almost unnerving, as if she were waiting for the perfect moment to respond. But what would happen next was something no one saw coming. The officer's questioning turned more aggressive, laced with accusations that had no basis. He claimed she looked suspicious and began implying she might be hiding something. The woman, still composed, maintained her silence, her steady gaze fixed on him. She had seen this scenario play out before, not from a car seat, but from the courtroom bench. Every word he spat out only dug the hole deeper, but he was too blinded by his own bias to notice. A small crowd began to gather at a distance, their murmurs growing louder as the tension thickened. Some recorded the scene on their phones, their eyes flickering between the officer and the woman. Yet, despite the escalating situation, she remained calm, as if she knew something the rest didn't. The officer, however, mistook her composure for weakness. Emboldened, he made a move that would take things to an entirely different level and seal his fate. The officer's patience snapped, and he ordered the woman out of the car, his voice sharp and commanding. The crowd's murmurs turned to gasps as she calmly stepped out, standing tall and unshaken. Her professional attire and air of authority seemed to momentarily catch him off guard, but he quickly masked it with more bravado. He accused her of resisting, his tone rising with every word. Cameras from onlookers zoomed in, capturing every second of the encounter. She finally spoke, her voice measured yet firm. "Are you sure you want to continue this?" The question was simple, but the weight of it hung heavy in the air. The officer's confidence faltered for just a second, but his ego pushed him forward. He reached for his cuffs, determined to assert control. What he didn't know was that he had just set the stage for a turning point no one present would ever forget. Weeks passed, and the facility seemed to thrive under Dr. Lewis' leadership. Dr. Peterson's efforts to change didn't go unnoticed, and while many were cautiously optimistic about his transformation, others still kept their guard up. It seemed like the tension had eased, and the workplace had turned a new page. But just as things were settling down, an unexpected incident brought the past rushing back to the surface. One busy afternoon, a high-profile patient was admitted, a prominent figure in the community who demanded the best care. Dr. Peterson and Dr. Lewis were both assigned to oversee the case. At first, their collaboration seemed professional, even cordial, but cracks began to show when Dr. Peterson started subtly undermining Dr. Lewis's decisions during rounds. He didn't openly challenge her, but his tone and dismissive comments in front of the team suggested lingering resentment. Dr. Lewis noticed but chose to stay composed, determined to handle the situation with grace. However, things escalated during a critical procedure. Dr. Peterson, confident in his own approach, disregarded Dr. Lewis' instructions and made a split-second decision that could have compromised the patient's safety. The team froze, unsure of who to follow, until Dr. Lewis stepped in with commanding authority, correcting the course and ensuring the patient's stability. The incident left everyone rattled. Later that day, Dr. Peterson was summoned to Dr. Lewis' office. She was no longer the calm, composed leader they had seen in meetings. This time, her tone was sharp, and her words were direct. "This isn't about personal feelings anymore, Dr. Peterson. It's about lives. Your ego nearly cost us a patient today." He tried to defend himself, but she stopped him. "If you can't work as part of this team, you don't belong here. I won't let anyone jeopardize the people we're here to care for." The confrontation sent shockwaves through the facility, but the true twist came when an internal investigation into the incident was launched. During the review, it was discovered that Dr. Peterson had a history of similar behavior at his previous job, something he had hidden when applying to the facility. The revelation sent everyone reeling, and suddenly, his redemption arc seemed less convincing. Dr. Lewis now faced a difficult decision. Should she give him one final chance to prove himself, knowing the risks, or should she let him go and set an example for the entire team? The stakes had never been higher, and the entire staff watched anxiously, unsure of what would happen next. Just as Dr. Lewis thought she had made her decision, she received an anonymous tip that suggested there might be more to Dr. Peterson's past than anyone realized. What she discovered next would change everything. As the room grew uncomfortably silent after the doctor's degrading remarks, the nurse calmly looked around at her colleagues. She could feel the weight of their stares and the tension hanging in the air. Instead of reacting emotionally, she simply smiled and walked away, leaving the doctor smirking, clearly satisfied with his show of dominance. Minutes later, a staff meeting was announced, and everyone was called into the conference room. The doctor sauntered in confidently, expecting it to be just another routine briefing. However, his face froze when the nurse he had humiliated moments ago walked in, taking the seat at the head of the table. Confused murmurs rippled through the room as she introduced herself, Dr. Andre Lewis, medical director of the facility. The room fell completely silent. Dr. Lewis spoke calmly, but with a firm tone, addressing the importance of respect and professionalism in the workplace. She didn't single the doctor out, but made it clear that discriminatory behavior would not be tolerated under her leadership. The staff watched in awe as she carried herself with grace, never once lowering herself to his level of pettiness. The doctor sat there, visibly uncomfortable, realizing the gravity of his mistake. Just as everyone thought the meeting was over, Dr. Lewis looked directly at the doctor and said, "Dr. Peterson, I'd like to speak with you privately." The room buzzed as people left, speculating about what might happen next. In her office, Dr. Lewis confronted him. "I'm aware of your impressive medical skills, but skill without respect and integrity means nothing," she said. Dr. Peterson tried to stammer out an apology, but she cut him off gently. "This isn't just about me. It's about the culture we're fostering here. If you're willing to change and grow, I'm willing to support you. But if not, this might not be the right place for you." The conversation left him shaken. The next day, to everyone's surprise, Dr. Peterson publicly apologized to the entire staff, including Dr. Lewis. He admitted his mistake and committed to making amends. While some doubted his sincerity, his actions in the weeks that followed showed real effort to be better. But the twist came when Dr. Lewis later revealed, during an informal gathering, that she'd started her career as a nurse before earning her medical degree. "You'd be surprised how much you learn when you start from the ground up," she said with a smile. It was a reminder to everyone that no one should ever be underestimated, regardless of their title or background. The story became a turning point for the facility, fostering a more inclusive and respectful environment. And while Dr. Peterson's journey to redemption wasn't easy, he became an advocate for workplace equity, showing that even the most flawed people can change, if they choose to.